India haven't lost a series at home in 12 years. England haven't lost a series in about 2 years, home or away, since Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes took charge. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host, Faris, and we have with us, after a gap of a few weeks perhaps, is Vivek from Gurgaon. How's it going, Vivek?
Good, good. It's bone chilling cold here, but otherwise all good. Nice to be back after a bit
Yeah,
of a
it's
gap.
nice to have you on, and I don't believe it's that bone-chilling cold in Hyderabad, where the teams are currently getting ready for the first set that starts
Yeah,
on Thursday. Um,
yeah,
how are you looking forward after all the white ball action? Are you looking forward to some good old Test cricket?
yeah. No, absolutely. I think Test cricket in the past, I think 4 or 5 years has been more interesting
Yeah,
because
true,
teams are playing with more aggressive mindset. So I can't even remember a Test match that hasn't seen a result.
true, true.
In the last 3 or 4 years. So whichever teams are playing,
Yeah,
I think it's great. And in this case, yeah, two good teams. So looking
yeah.
forward.
And in fact, I think about half the Test matches actually end by day four, for that matter, right? So they actually move pretty
Yeah.
fast. So draw is not even a question.
I think
So
the last series in India, there was one match. I think it was in Ahmedabad, right? It finished in 2 days, I think. That was
yes,
pretty
yes.
bizarre.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the last Test match India played clearly in South Africa finished in a day and a half, right? Like when I did a show
Yes,
about
that
this,
was
we called
wow.
it I called it a 1.5 day international, right? But that's what it was really,
Yeah,
more than a Test match. But
quite crazy.
if you look at India's dominance, right? Like most few countries lose at home. India has been very dominant. Uh, what do you think it comes down to? Is it the quality of the spinners they have? And I say that ironically at a time where India's pace bowlers in the last few years perhaps have been better than ever before. But I think the spinners have really been dominating even more than usual in the home test in the last 4 or 5 years, perhaps. How do you see, like,
Yeah.
what do you think India's dominance comes down to at home, especially?
I think, honestly, from my childhood, growing up seeing cricket while in school in the 90s,
Hmm.
India, they might be doing badly all over the world, but it was always a home series that would be the redemption. And so I think India has always been strong at home. Home
True.
crowd advantage is big. The conditions obviously work. Indian batsmen historically have been more comfortable in slow, low pitches,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So it offers a lot of that.
yeah,
Obviously, the spinners, like you're saying, we're
yeah,
better endowed always with more
yeah,
options
yeah,
than the
yeah.
opposition. So
No,
these are simple factors, works all the
yeah.
time.
So I think if you quickly look at a bit of a spotlight on the visitors, right? Say England, right? So England now have, right before Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum were appointed as coach and captain, they had won one test in the last 17. Since then, they've drawn two series and won everything. It's been a couple of years. They pretty much played everyone except for India in the meantime.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is like Bazball is what they talk about, right? So Bazball is not something which the team has. By the way, the team is now uses that word. That's what the media calls it, because Baz is, of course, the coach. I think the whole idea is they want players to be as relaxed as possible and be as aggressive as possible. So if you look at how it plays out, they bat aggressively, try to put bowlers under pressure. They score at a strike rate of 76%, which is by far highest for any side. With the ball as well, they want to take wickets. They don't really care about containing runs. And since they've been in charge, in 35 innings, they've bowled outside 33 times. So clearly, they are playing aggressively, whether you like it or not. And they initially played New Zealand. They beat them. People are like, okay, this is fine, but can they do it against India in the one-off test? India came over to England for a leftover test match to beat India. Then they said, can they do it against South Africa? They went down in the first test, but still won the series. Then they said, can they do it in Pakistan away? They beat Pakistan away. Then it became, can they do it against Australia at home? And they drew the series, the Ashes, but they came very close. Rain saved Australia. So clearly,
Yeah.
it's worked for them so far. Whether it works in India or not is a very different conversation. And by the way,
Yeah.
those of you watching, if you have a view on whether you think Bazball will work in India, please leave a comment. But Vivek, high level, before we get into details, how do you see this style of play working or not working in India?
I think it's the best option they have because
Yeah,
that's in their DNA now. That's what they're playing. That's what they back themselves with. Yes, in India, you might have to let yourself to get in to the bounce of the wicket, especially if the ball is turning, especially on day two onwards and so on. But I think they'll probably back themselves to think in this way. Like it's probably harder to stay at the wicket.
yeah,
So with the time that I'm in the wicket, might as well, score as much as possible.
yeah,
I think honestly, not just England. I think a lot of countries do that nowadays.
yeah, yeah.
The recent India South Africa Test series I felt was like that.
True.
Both teams knew that it's hard to bat So it's easier that whatever we are there, let's just, if something is, short and wide, let's just go for it.
If there's a ball round the corner with your name on it, might as well score runs in the meantime. Right?
Yeah,
That's the philosophy.
I think even India plays like that, to be honest.
True.
So South Africa, I think it's the mindset because of maybe T20 cricket, but they all play like that.
I like what somebody, I think Andrew Miller on Cricinfo said this. He said, they may not win it with Bazball, but they probably have a better shot winning this way than whatever they were doing last 2 times they were there, right?
So yeah.
And I think it's also important to talk about how test matches have changed in India in the last 2-3 years. So if you look at the games between 2021 and now, there's been 400 has only been made 5 times, right? And scores below 200 have been made 19 times. If you look at 500 plus scores, they've been scored 3 times, but there's also been scores under 100 3 times. So India test matches have become a lot lower scoring than they used to be, like you said. They're also lasting for less time. So I think the pitches have been a bit more spin friendly. And I'm sure that's part of the India. I mean, it's a home ground, fair enough, right? They can have any kind of pitches they like. So they've opted to go for these pitches that perhaps spin a bit more. A bit ironic, given that this is probably the best seam attack they have. So how do you see, I guess, how the pitches evolved, Vivek, and do you see, how do you see that affecting the outcome of this series and the game?
I feel they're going to go with the slow, low game, obviously turning wickets, because while India's seam attack is fine, to be honest, it's on paper, it's fine. I mean, like Mohammad Shami hasn't played since the World Cup final. And in recent times, the bowling has been a bit on and off. So I think it's not a given that it's there. And then, of course, on a given day, the England also have, their attack.
True.
So I think the spin is the advantage, and it's a psychological advantage as well.
True.
And India has both types of spinners, right? I mean, you can play Ashwin, who's he flights the ball and gets the ball in. You have Akshar Patel, who'll be like wicket to wicket. Teja, if they decide to play. So I think no. So it will be the spin.
Ironically, the last time India lost a series at home was to England. And I think one of the views was that the England spinners were better than the Indian spinners. England then had Swan and Monty Panesar. And India had Ashwin and Jadeja, but they were literally in the first few test matches. So obviously, since then, they've become powerhouses in terms of... That was 12 years ago.
While India have the advantage, Farid, I don't think India can take it for granted. I think that's for sure. England will come well prepared. They're a good team, good confidence. I'm sure they would have learned from the series last time. And last time they were all at sea against a spin attack. And I'm sure they'll be prepared. See, I think one thing also India have to keep remembering is that playing in India is no longer some mystery game because of so much cricket being played in India and with IPL and all others. So people are getting more and more comfortable with it. So
and there's the cricket element, but there's also that aura and the myth, right? So because of the amount of time these guys spend in India, it's much more familiar territory for them, generally speaking.
Exactly. They're not so alien to, humid conditions or, eating different kind of food. And so I think India is very much so. I think India can't sit back and say, oh, this is going to be like one of those, they'll capitulate at home. I think India will have to play at their best.
And going back to the approach, right? Because I feel like if the games actually are low scoring, right? 250, 300, then that's where Bazball kind of comes in, right? Because a quick 60 can be game changing as opposed to needing to score 160, right? And that's where, I mean, to be honest, if I was India, I wouldn't be quite sure. Do I want an insanely spin friendly pitch or do I want a flat pitch? Because Bazball kind of comes into it either way, right? And this is something which Nasser Hussain said, by the way, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. He said, if I were BCCI, I wouldn't make pitches that spin a lot because that would really bring the English spinners in who aren't that good at spin bowling, really, right? But if if they spin a little bit and so on, that's probably it's a better pitch for India. How do you see that statement, and what do you think of what kind of pitch would work best?
It's a good statement. It's true, right? Because but again, I mean, I'm remembering the series last time in India, and they were turning wickets. You had Joe Root,
take a 5 for.
Yeah, exactly. There was some insane spell, 5 for 3 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, it's true, right? So suddenly you get those guys in to the game as well. But I still feel that they'll do that because psychologically, get those. You get an early wicket, you put 5 fielders around the bat, you
wake the demons in the head.
That's what they'll go for. But I agree with you that I think in India's problem, or I think thing they have to worry about is the batting, and they I feel that, with Pujara and Rahane out, I think the test batting team looks quite, honestly, not so solid. We saw that in the recent series as well.
Yeah. So I guess if you look at how the teams are building up, right? So there's some news coming out of the Indian camp today, which is not so good news, is that Virat Kohli is actually withdrawn for the first 2 test matches for personal reasons. So of course we wish him the best to him and his family. But I think it's not necessarily the best, the last thing India would have hoped for, perhaps. Having said that, I think losing Kohli in India is not a big blow as losing Kohli abroad. Because as we saw in South Africa, Kohli was perhaps the only guy who had a measure of the conditions. But I feel like in India, a lot of the other guys are probably, again, they should be able to hold their own, some of the younger guys as well. If you look at how England, so again, this is interesting. England also, by the way, Harry Brook has withdrawn at the last minute, because again, for personal reasons. We wish him well. Let's see how England line up. But England actually chose not to come to India to play any practice games. They spent 10 days in Abu Dhabi, acclimatizing, if you can call it acclimatizing in Abu Dhabi for Hyderabad. And they've arrived in Hyderabad today on Monday, 3 days before the game. How do you see that decision of not coming to India and only showing up 3 days before? Is it arrogant, or is it this how the modern world works?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? I don't know what's in their head. It's personal schedules. They play a lot of cricket. They travel a lot. Maybe there were some logistics reasons. But I also believe that, again, India doesn't hold, it's not as unfamiliar as it used to be. So maybe they feel comfortable that, okay, I'll come in.
I mean, apparently their logic is that, what you said, they're very familiar, they know how to bat, and let's just relax out there and then come in last minute. Because as it is,
maybe they don't want to, which is good. Maybe they don't want to, play a practice match, and what if they get bundled out to some.
And it's a long tour. It's almost 2 months, I believe, right? So they're like, okay, let's just not go earlier than we need to go. And one last question before we get into, I guess, the selection and stuff. And by the way, those of you watching, if you like the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. The games are in Hyderabad, Vizag, Rajkot, Ranchi, and Dharamsala. The names you don't typically, in a test series, you probably see some of Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Ahmedabad for that matter these days. None of them are there. Is that strategic? Is that more about making sure every city has games after a World Cup? How do you see that?
No idea. I mean, I can only guess that these are places that didn't get a lot of matches during the World Cup. So it's probably that. No, actually, Dharamshala did. Honestly, I don't.
Hyderabad did too. Hyderabad did too.
Hyderabad got. Yes, yeah. Hyderabad got. I don't know. No comment.
But it is interesting, right? Because it's unusual for sure to have a series and not have any test matches against.
They're also small grounds. I think all of these.
So
again, the baseball point. I mean, it might go in that favor as well.
Yeah. I mean, you would think India, England is a pretty big draw whereas test cricket is concerned, right? You would think they'll be able to even fill up larger grounds, but let's see how it plays out. I'm going to put up the 11s, which I think will play, and see what your view is on, and whether you have a different view. So coming up on your screen, firstly, is the Indian 11. Now, until yesterday, this would have read as Kohli at 4 and Bharat/Iyer at 6. With, I think, because the question was whether they play KL Rahul as a wicketkeeper, whether they play KS Bharat as a wicketkeeper. Now with Kohli going out, I guess Gill is definitely playing, probably batting Iyer is definitely playing, probably batting at 4, and Rahul is definitely playing. Whether he's keeping or not is the question. So do you see them, whoever the reserve batsman comes in, do you see them playing a 6th batsman and having Rahul keep wickets, or what do you say KS Bharat would keep wickets?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, if Bharat is playing, I guess he would keep wickets, and they'll
if
play
he is
Rahul
playing.
as a
If he is
batsman.
playing, yeah. So
yeah.
I mean,
I think now that Kohli is out, I guess they would play Bharat and.
That was my thought, right? Because I feel like had Kohli been there, then they may have made Rahul. I mean, the temptation to make Rahul keep would have been there. Just to be clear, Rahul is actually only ever kept in 3 first-class games for domestically or abroad. He's kept for a lot in white ball cricket. And those 3 games are all abroad. Typically, in India's thinking has been to have the specialist, the best keeper at home, especially against the spinners, and then perhaps have the better batsman abroad. So I feel like that's just they would go with KS Bharat.
Kohli's situation probably sorted itself out for them. So I mean, yes, I would agree with you.
Yeah. And in terms of the bowling mix, as you see, I've got
that Bharat would probably be picked.
And I don't know who the next batsman was. I've got reserve batsmen in there. In the bowling, I've got 3 spinners with Jadeja, Ashwin, Akshar, and then Bumrah and Siraj. I'm assuming Shami's not fit. He's not in the squad for the first 2 tests. Do you feel like that's the balance they'll go with?
Oh, I missed.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't know about Shami's exclusion. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
he would be in there. But no, I think Akshar and Ashwin, yes. Jadeja also, yes. Yeah, this is what I think it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know on the reserve batsman side. I mean, is Hanuma Vihari there or?
So they actually had no other batsman in the 15 they announced. But now
Okay.
that Kohli's gone out today, they're probably going to announce somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, that just happened a few
I
hours ago, so I'm sure we'll
feel
have one
that,
by tomorrow.
Rahane is the miss, like,
Yeah.
I feel that there was those 4-5 years in which you had Pujara and Rahane,
Yeah.
and I think they added a lot of solidity. I mean, Rahane,
Yeah.
even with his 30s and 40s, were making a difference. Pujara, of course, would keep his end, and then
Especially, yeah, even away from home, even more so, right? Like at home, I feel like the younger guys like Iyer and Gill will probably do well
I think
anyway.
it was missed in South Africa, 100%. And then you had Rishabh Pant to come and then play that quick fire innings, and that formula was working.
Yeah.
So India is now, honestly, psychologically and on the paper, yes, but this is still brand new combination and team. Is not necessarily won matches like that has. So a lot of work to do.
And Kohli is stepping out, obviously, really, I think somewhat even things out relatively, right? Because I think if you look at the balance of the sides. Now, England, similar conundrum. England actually had lost Harry Brooks. So before that, the question was, would they play Foakes, a specialist keeper, or make Bairstow keep? So Bairstow's been, again, he kept in the Ashes, but in the last 2 years, he was playing purely as a batsman. This looks like the side England will play. This is essentially the side they've been playing for the last couple of years. The only question is whether they will make Bairstow keep wickets like they did in the last series in the Ashes, or whether they'll make Foakes keep wickets. And then if they don't play, if they make Bairstow keep, they'll probably bring Dal Lawrence in, who's the backup batsman. Any thoughts on that?
If I remember right, I think they'll go with what they did in the last time they were in India. I think Foakes was the keeper then. And Bairstow played as a batsman.
And Foakes is no mug with the bat, by the way. He averages 35 for Surrey or whatever he plays.
So if I remember right, that's when he played. So I think they would then, for them, their keepers, I think they would definitely go the specialist keeper, Indian wicket.
Makes sense.
So Bairstow as a batsman, I think he's experienced in India. They would keep him. And he's good enough as a batsman. Joe Root will be obviously the biggest wicket.
For sure. I mean, in the last time England was in India, England actually won the first game on a flattish Chennai track. They scored 500 plus. Joe Root scored 200. And then the track became excessively sprint friendly. And then there was a very different series after that. But Joe Root, again, was the star of that match, which may have been the last time. I think one of the last 2 test matches India has lost was that game. In terms of the bowling, so they have Anderson and Wood with the pace again. And then they have, I guess, backups are Atkinson and Robinson. My guess is they'll only go with 2 spinners. And then Jack Leach is probably a given. He's consistently in the 11. The other 3 spinners they have are this Rehan Ahmed, who's a leg spinner who's played like 4 test matches. There's Shoaib Bashir, who no one had heard of until recently, but he's an off spinner. And then they have this guy called Hartley, who they call the Akshar Patel of England, right? So he's barely played any first-class cricket, but he's very tall. He's left-handed. He kind of darts it into the stumps. So I think the talk coming out of the camp is they might be going with this Hartley guy, which would suggest 3 spinners with Jack Leach, Hartley, and then Joe Root, of course, and then 2 quicks. Does that balance make sense to you?
I don't know much about Hartley, but Jack Leach, yes, he was also reasonably successful in the last tour in India. Anderson and Wood, fully agree. I mean, Robinson is the only, I could see him coming in somewhere. We also had a decent time in India last time. That would be, one which could fit in somewhere here.
I'm guessing, given the short turnarounds, if Jimmy Anderson plays, or even Wood for that matter, they may struggle to play 2 matches back to back, depending on how much bowling they get. So you may see Robinson anyway in the second game for one or the other.
Yeah, I do think that Robinson is very close to this level as well. I think for them, the biggest thing would be these the opening batsmen. Can they really keep that end and then give England a solid start and not cave in? I think it's going to be huge. They'll have to prove themselves, these 2.
And given the pattern we've seen, right, like it's not about scoring 500. It's more about getting 300, 350 on the board somehow. And that is a very strong show in India these days. I would ordinarily be talking about the stadium and where the first match is, but Hyderabad, the last game there was 2018. against a very weak West Indies side. The last game before that was against Bangladesh a year earlier, and then nothing since 2012. So there isn't much. That doesn't really count for much. Typically, Hyderabad is considered somewhat batting friendly, but like we said, it'll probably be in line with what the Indian management wants. Before we go to predictions, what do you think both of you would want to do to win the toss? Any thoughts?
I mean, no clue on the wicket. I think it'll depend on the conditions.
Yeah.
If overcast, but though I think Hyderabad, I was there last week, so it's weather is very clear. It's nice. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Hard to say. I think it'll depend on what the wicket
but chances are, if it's a spinning track, it'll probably get worse to bat with time. So I'm guessing the team will prefer batting first for that reason.
Yeah. Hypothesis, deteriorate pitch situations, we will bat first.
Yes.
So I guess that's what you would go with.
And I guess the last question for the day is, what's your prediction for the first game and the series overall?
Yeah, I mean, I would back India to win this one, though I don't think it's going to be easy. I do expect all 4 matches to have results. I do.
It's 5 matches, by the way.
Could be a 3-1. Oh, it's 5-1. Okay, so it could very well be a 3-2, 4-1 situation. So that's. I would hope also. I think that makes everything.
I'm really hoping for a really a somewhat close series, right? Where I feel like cricket needs it. And again, these two teams could really have some exciting games. Again, my prediction would probably be, I would say 4-1 to India, but I really hope those 4 are not one-sided games, but like close ones.
I think it would be close. I mean, if you observe a lot of these games closely, even when a test is won comfortably, it all boils down to a couple of sessions, where you either lose wickets quickly, or you score quickly. So I do think it's going to be like that. The score line in the end might be deceptive, but they're going to be close matches. I mean, session to session, you'll have to fight.
I forgot to mention one thing, by the way. So Ben Stokes actually had knee surgery after the World Cup, and he's been in rehab since. He hasn't played any kind of cricket since. So he's meant to be starting. But I guess what his level of fitness and so on is probably something to keep an eye on. But
probably not bowl, especially in India, I think.
I mean, he's barely been bowling anyway, so I would probably imagine he won't bowl, not in the first few games at least, and then take it from there. But
I think more. I don't think he's a big match player. I think mostly, right? So. He still, like last year in against Australia, he came through. So
and I think his view was getting surgery done is important so he can start bowling again. But I feel like it's probably too soon right now, because surgery was in November, right? So it's probably too soon to be bowling. But good stuff. Thank you for being on, Vivek.
Sure. Thanks, man. And look forward to I think an exciting series. Hopefully, it's one of those where you're kind of watching every day and it swings.
And I was actually following a Pakistan-Australia series last month, so that was really tough from a timing point of view. This is really much more real time, daytime for us, so it's great time to watch also. So
bad luck with Pakistan. It has not been on a
yes.
No, with Australia and now the New Zealand as well now.
I think after the fourth T20, the show I said it's been 33 episodes of the shiny side since Pakistan won a game, and that's actually true, by the way.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But we won the next game, so finally the jinx is broken.
You won the fifth game, Pakistan.
Fifth one, yeah. I didn't watch a ball of that, but Pakistan won. But anyway, Vivek, thank you for being on. And for those of you watching, if you, again, like I mentioned, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back after this test match to see how it turns out. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.